The Graphic Histories Podcast.
I got bit by a radioactive bug. I tried an experimental drug. Went up for a stroll on a gamma testing range. I found an enchanted hurricane. I made a serum that made me small. I modified the serum so it would make me tall. Radioactive isotope in my eyes. Dying alien helped me accessorize. I gained the proportion and strength of a spider. Now I'm invincible and I can fly. I lost my sight, my other senses were heightened. I'm gonna put on my pajamas and go fight crime.
Hello there and welcome to the Graphic Histories Podcast. My name is Andre Mayette, your podcast host. Big thanks to Ukla the Mock for our theme song, Superpowers. And big thanks to you, gentle listener, for tuning in to another show. Today's episode features Chuck Patton, Emmy award-winning director of a bunch of animation, as well as been involved with animation for many, many years, and comics prior to that. Great conversation with Chuck, and a really fun time, man. You know, like I mentioned in the past, sometimes you really connect with people. Sometimes you really have to prompt folks, like really, I don't want this to ever feel like an interview show, where I just, have predetermined questions and just say, hey, what about this, what about that? And often the best conversations are when you don't have to do that, although some folks either expect that or they're just not, as big conversationalists as others, or sometimes you just connect with someone on a level and there's kind of magic. And with Chuck, there was magic. He was fun to talk to. We connected right away, and a great conversation with him. I mean, this thing could have been double the amount of time. It actually ran a little long. I would have liked to go longer, but I had to run off to rehearsal for a play I'm in, and maybe someday I'll get a chance to circle back and talk with him again. I do have one apology to make. When I was speaking with him, I did say that I think he may be the only guest that I've had on the show that's won an Emmy, and that was my mistake. Brad Rader, who I had on the show previously, also had won an Emmy, and I believe it was for the same thing, for Spawn as well. But so I just wanted to apologize to Brad. That was not correct. And but great conversation, great talk, super cool guy, really great. In the world of the world of nerddom, the world of comics, the world of all that great stuff, a lot of interesting news dropping over on the other podcast I do, our sister show, the X-Rated X-Men Anime Review Show. We discuss the trailer dropping for X-Men 97, which looks amazing. Very excited. Super cool to hear all the old voices back and see the style and see where they're going to go with it and what they're going to do with it. And it just seems like a great tribute and homage to what had come before, and very excited about that. I know my co-host Davin is as well. And also the Deadpool trailer dropped, the Deadpool and Wolverine trailer, which was really cool. I'm excited to see what they're going to do with it. I love the TVA plays a role in it. I love that organization is still an active part of the Marvel Universe. It looks like they're going to have a lot of fun with playing with timelines and continuities and alternate realities and all the good stuff that comes with all the world we've built. People come and go and complain about the Marvel Universe as it is, and things aren't as good as they want them to be. I have now caught up. I've watched Secret Invasion, which I actually liked. I don't understand all the hate for it. And I watched Loki Season 2, which I absolutely loved as well. It was very, very cool, and I love how they wrapped that up. And I watched Echo, which I also really liked, although I felt like the last episode was a little blah. But overall, it was a great show. And I'm happy, man. I'm getting a bunch of Marvel stuff, and it's still coming, so keep it coming, Marvel. I'm a happy boy. But we don't need to drone on and on about my life, as I often do, but let's talk with our guest today. Today's guest is Chuck Patton, and as I mentioned, it's a great conversation. Sometimes they come a little harder, sometimes they come easy, and this one really came easy, so great chat with Chuck, and why wait any longer? Let's get to it. Here it is, my talk with Chuck Patton. How are things in your neck of the woods?
It's wet, gray. We're told we're gonna have another storm. I'm hoping it won't be like the last one, but so far it's been really mellow.
Where's home for you again?
California.
Oh, okay, yes.
Los Angeles. We're having rare rain, let alone a rare rainstorm. Wow, it's like a riot.
Yeah, that was good. There was something I had to do the other day. What was it? Oh, I was doing a film project, and there are these things in Canada that were. I live in Nova Scotia, the other side of Canada. There.
Oh, okay,
Yep.
cool. Okay.
And
It's funny. My older brother has been texting me like crazy, and he was living in Nova Scotia for a minute.
oh wow, there are these things all across Canada that are they were Cold War bunkers that were built for the Prime Minister at the time. Like they built them in the 60s. And
Mhm.
the Prime Minister of Canada at that time was Diefenbaker, and so they called them Diefen bunkers, just kind of colloquially. And there's only a few left. They've all been decommissioned many, many years ago, but some private owners have them and do things. So a friend of
Awesome.
mine was doing a documentary about it, and he wanted me to help him, like I do some acting. So I played like a dude that's an expert in the Diefenbunker, and and it's in a place called Debert, and to say Debert Diefenbunker is like the hardest thing in the world for me. I was struggling every time. I'm like,
Oh,
can I just
man.
say Diefenbunker? It's a lot easier than Debert Diefenbunker.
No shit. No, who
Yeah.
came up with that idea?
Oh God. And it would just tongue tie you. One time I called it the beef and bunker, and like we are just like I don't know, but it was a hoot. Oh wow, so LA, that's pretty fun. I mean, weather-wise, it must be. I guess the rain is good for you guys. Like there was a while where you guys had a severe drought there. So
It's good and it causes problems at the time because it's been so dry and there's areas where, they hadn't thought they were going to get rain. And all of a sudden they're underwater.
yeah.
San Diego really got slammed. Downtown San Diego, I think it looked like flooded Venice
Oh
for a
jeez.
while. So it was, but on the other hand, it's like, we've had droughts where we thought, yeah, no more vegetation.
Yeah.
And so I tell people it's a mixed blessing. Shut the fuck up, learn to drive in the rain,
hmm
put a jacket on, pretend you're in New York.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
Well, I listen to Mark Maron's podcast a lot, and he's out there, and he's always like, when they were the worst of that, he was constantly kind of giving updates at the start of his show about where the drought was, and it sounded pretty harrowing for a while, but then you guys got like way too much rain on top of it. So
That's a weird thing to say we get way too much rain, because I'm actually from Michigan. I grew up in Michigan.
oh really?
Oh, it's like, we have the elements. You got the four seasons, the whole thing.
Oh yeah,
It's like the land's going to tell you what it needs, whether you like it or not.
yeah,
So
yeah,
this is no different.
yeah.
It's no,
No, that's kind of always brings you back to like the old uh, Carlin sort of routine where he always talks
uh,
about how like he was, he's not afraid for the future of the planet. He's like, Earth will be just fine. He's
oh
like,
yeah.
humans might not be here, but it'll be just fine. It'll do what it needs to keep going.
George was a goddamn prophet.
Oh yeah, 100%.
He knew what was going on, and God bless him.
Yeah, for sure. So you grew up in Michigan.
Yeah,
Awesome.
good Detroit. Detroit. Yeah.
What did your folks do?
Well, my folks they weren't artists. They
Rarely they are when I talk to artistic people. So
It's funny. It's like I'm the only professional artist in the family, not the most creative. Everybody had something, but I was the only one that really capitalized on it. I
hmm
really made it my career. And I have sisters who can sing. My oldest brother was very creative artist, and chose not to go into that.
really,
So completely total opposite. You know. In
what
fact,
did he
that
end
was
up doing?
he became an educator. He was
Uh-huh.
also in the military
Oh wow.
and rose up in the military. I mean, he went in as a swabby and came out as an officer
Oh
in the
wow.
Navy. The brother I was just talking to is my immediate older brother, the one I
Oh,
grew up closest to. And he went into the Coast Guard and became one of the Coast Guard's top, highest ranking petty officers.
oh wow.
Not Master Chiefs, I'm sorry. I
Yeah.
just devalued him again. Sorry.
It's so
Because I love him to death. We tease each other. Like, he's like, Master Chief is considered like one of the highest non-ranking officers of not only the Coast Guard but in the military.
Mhm.
So there's only so many men who actually reach that rank. And he's one of them.
Wow.
And so I have that brother. I have a brother who was in the Marine Corps who got through NAM safely. I
Oh
don't know
wow.
how. I'm the only one that didn't go into the military,
Yeah.
but again, I'm the only one that took my talent, used it.
Yeah,
So
in an
my
artistic way.
folks were not that. No,
No?
not at all.
Were they supportive of an artistic son?
Yeah, I have a really kind of convoluted background. I wasn't raised by my natural folks.
Oh.
This is my natural brothers I'm talking to.
Mm-hmm.
But my mother, because we had such a large family, my parents, my natural father was blind,
Mm-hmm.
and my mother was a housekeeper, and she was overwhelmed, and so her best friend at the time was best friends still took me in as a guardian and eventually became my foster parent.
Oh, wow.
So I lived next door to my natural siblings while I was being taken care of by other people who are as close to me as blood.
Wow.
And my mother was a housekeeper.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she was a housekeeper. She became a housewife.
Mm-hmm.
My foster father was a construction worker.
Yeah.
But between those two, I say they nurtured me. To answer your question, yeah, they supremely nurtured me and supported. It's weird to say support, but definitely nurtured, because whatever I needed to become an artist, they never held back. Even when I was being chastised in school by both kids and the administration, they still backed me up. They still, we went through the trials of being forced to, I've had artwork torn up in my face when I was
Oh,
a kid.
Jesus. Really?
And my parents, like, that's only paper, didn't stop my imagination. It didn't stop me from watching television, didn't stop me from reading books. They bought me a ton of books. I had huge amounts of books. The one book I wish I kept, but it's so much a part of the family, was this size dictionary that as a kid, I would just go in and look at words. And when I couldn't understand a word in the paperback I was reading, I'd go into that book and find out what that word was. And that was more helpful than what I was learning in school. So I was really grateful and lucky to have people like that in my life who really cultivated me into being an artist.
I'll say that's yeah. Was there any I guess living in that sort of way with you having kind of a separate being raised with your siblings but by other people next door, did that cause any kind of divide or anything with you and your siblings as you grew, or?
I wouldn't say a divide, but it was uncomfortable sometimes
Yeah.
because they wanted to be where I was. They
Yeah.
were used to my foster parents were our godparents,
Oh, I
so
see.
they knew everybody, and
Mhm.
everybody, we lived so close. It was like, my father was called Uncle Bill by my brothers
Hmm.
and sisters, but they were just mom and pop to me,
Yeah.
and we never changed it. I never changed my name. I remember having a conversation with my father saying, would you want me to change my name? He wanted me to keep whatever name I wanted,
Hmm.
as long as I knew I was his son. And that said more to me
Oh.
than anything.
Oh, that's
That
heartwarming.
that was kind of hard. It was heartwarming, but I also saw it was hard on the others because they had their connections with my grandparents who lived primarily next door. My mom was often working. My natural mom, I mean, she was a live-in housekeeper for a family.
Hmm.
So the thing was, they weren't denied any. It got uncomfortable because it was like you go home, and where do you go?
Hmm.
I go next door. They go back to their place. We would play together, but it would always come up among kids. Kids are going to be really, really honest,
Oh,
or
yeah.
they're not going to hold back. Why are you getting this? And so
Yeah.
for years, I got this. Why were you being, special?
Hmm.
Which made me feel anything but special.
Yeah.
And so I had to deal with that.
Yeah.
Again, we're closer now. We can talk about things. My younger siblings beneath me. Um, it's a weird thing to say, younger siblings beneath me. I love them to death. They're
Yeah.
the ones after me. Used to always ask me, do you regret being our brother? Like, hell no, I mean,
Oh,
I was
yeah.
talking about sex. I mean, come on,
Yeah.
you don't give them cautionary tales. Don't do this, do that. Let you love them. Although my younger brother still is pissed off because I didn't share my comics with him. Precious to me. I didn't take him. I think I took him to the store once. And I didn't realize, because we forget how important these things were. That was so big for him. And unfortunately, I didn't take him because that was my secret thing. That was my thing.
Yeah.
And I regret now that I didn't take him. And he makes sure he reminds me.
Well, it worked out. I mean, obviously,
Yeah,
what were those comics you were reading when you were a kid?
you name them, I read them.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, he
Awesome.
had my foster sisters. Again, I owe them a lot too. I was explaining this to someone. I don't even know how we economically did it, but since comics were cheap back then, it makes sense. I mean, for $1, you could buy 10 comics back in the
Oh,
day.
yeah.
Almost $10 until the bastards moved up to 12 cents. But still,
Now
but I
$10
remember,
might get you two, maybe.
oh yeah, but I remember the 10-cent comic, and that was my era. It was the 10-cent comic. So my foster sisters loved. Well, I remember we definitely always got the Superman family. So there was always the Lois Lane books, the Lana Lane books, the Superman. I remember those standing out because I cared only about the Superman books, but then he would show up in that, so I had to read them.
Oh, yeah.
And it was weird going, who cares about his girlfriends? But I was a kid, like, all right, I'll put up with it. It's my sister's buying it. So we had those. They were also both were into horror. They both were into sci-fi.
Oh,
Uh,
silly my kind of
so
people.
so we read all the DC stuff. It was hard getting Marvel in my area for some reason.
Hmm.
Um, Distribution was really screwy because I remember there was certain books I didn't get a Spider-Man book hardly at all,
Oh, wow.
but until later. And but I remember there's I can get FF, a Fantastic Four, Thor for sure. I don't know why Thor was big in the name in the hood. I know.
Really? Thor was the icon of the hood.
There was
Wow.
something about Thor that just hit the brothers, and you can get
Wow.
a book,
Of all of the characters I could think of that that would fit that mold, I don't know if Thor would be would be near the top of the list.
Someone put it really well about Thor is a lot about father issues.
Hmm.
And I had a feeling, when they said that, and he wasn't somebody I'm going to quote who said it, but let's
Yeah.
just say someone that is in the business and respected. And when I heard that, I went, I don't agree with him on a lot of shit, but that pretty much hits it on the head. Damn.
Yeah.
A lot about family. A lot about family.
Yeah. Well,
And,
it's true. It's mostly his dad telling him the stuff he can't do, and then
right. And then he'll do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then his dad would punish him, and yeah.
Thor was all about family and dad issues and defying the man and becoming the man and all that crap. Now my mom read comics, but she also read a lot of paperbacks. I mean, her love of reading I got from her.
Oh, beautiful.
And she read everything. The thing that I loved most about it, I remember fondly, was when she found something she really liked, she would read it to the family. And now this is where it's going to get really fun. It wasn't like she was reading philosophical, historical shit.
Okay.
She was reading Edgar Rice Burroughs.
Oh,
she was reading.
nice.
She was reading. Every once in a while, she would get. The one novel I knew she hated and loved at the same time was Gone with the Wind. Gone with the Wind.
Yeah.
She would read it and get mad and throw it across the room. And then she'll pick it up later and read it and throw it across the room. I mean, I've never seen her it was such a love-hate relationship with that book.
Yeah.
She loved the writing. She obviously hated the subject matter, which
Yeah.
I understand. I remember feeling the same when I saw the movie. So,
Yeah, it's one of those things that, with time, everything kind of gets reassessed and revalued, and that one is not looked kindly back on now.
Not at all.
The way certain figures were depicted. Although the lady that, like, a lot of them that a lot of people take a lot of umbrage with, and her whole career beyond that, I can't think of her name right now, but it's interesting because she sort of just played that character for the rest of her life, but in like a bunch of
the
other...
actress?
Yeah, I can't remember her name, like the maid woman.
Butterfly McQueen was probably
right.
Well,
yes,
it was Hattie McDaniel and Butterfly McQueen.
I think it was Hattie McDaniel. So I'm thinking of
Hattie McDaniel won the Oscar.
Yeah,
and the sad part was they wouldn't let her speak. They had to write her speech out and shit.
Yeah,
but I mean, the irony is she didn't get as much hate as, let's say, Stephen Fetchit.
right.
Thing about Hattie McDaniel was that there was a certain nobility in where it's funny looking at it now, and you can see how much talent was holding back. You can see them knowing what to do.
Yeah.
And they would do as they say. I mean, these people were scene stealers.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
No one gives him credit for to take such a heinous role under really very disturbed, God, I'm losing words today. It's Monday.
It's all good.
I ran out of coffee, so I'm drinking this. So I'm like running on sugar and caffeine at the same time.
It's
But
actually a holiday here in Canada, so I'm kind of in the same way. I just
this holiday here too.
Oh, is it? Yeah, it's they call it
What do they call it in Canada?
well, it's weird. It's a weird holiday. So it's called Family Day in the other provinces. But in I don't think they have it in Quebec. But in
Wow.
Nova Scotia they call it Heritage Day. And
Okay, that's cool.
yeah, and they pick some famous person from, Canadian or Nova Scotian heritage specifically to sort
Right,
of
right,
celebrate.
right.
So I think today it was a gentleman that was I feel like a terrible Canadian because I can't remember what it was.
That's okay.
Something Hall. He was a black military guy for Nova Scotia that actually was like won a bunch of awards in World War II, but never really told anybody about it. His name was William
Sounds
Hall.
familiar.
Yeah,
There's so
he,
many people like it, obviously down here in the lower 49.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
we I mean that's one of the things that when my brother went up there, that opened my eyes is how many black people are honored or known, and don't feel bad. I mean, hell, there's a lot of people I'm supposed to know. I don't remember, and I only remember the ones that impact me. That's all
Yeah,
I.
well, that's it, right?
I was
Uh,
yelling at some writer about Baz Reeves because I knew about Baz Reeves 20 years before all this Baz Reeves stuff.
oh, the
And,
lawman,
oh, the lawman. Oh,
yeah.
yeah. I love westerns, so to
There's a
find out
new show about him that just came out, isn't there?
the
Or
show
something?
came out, yeah, the
Yeah.
show came out from the guy who made Yellowstone, and he did
Oh,
a, I thought
Sheridan.
he did a brilliant job on both that and 1883 more than the one everybody loves him for.
Oh yeah.
I can care less about that show.
Actually the one thing I had never watched Yellowstone. I don't know anything about
Yeah,
it, but he made this movie called Wind River,
that's a
which
great,
which is
yeah.
a fucking fantastic movie.
He,
That was
he,
one me and a friend just were like, let's go watch this. Like we usually always go see something at the theater, nothing else really. I think we've seen everything else. And we're like, let's and like because Nick Cave did the score and I
oh
like
yeah,
him, and I was like, and
did
that's
all the
an
right tones.
awesome movie, fucking beautiful
Yeah.
movie.
The plot was just letter perfect. Mysteries. That's another thing my
Yeah.
mom loved. I mean,
Oh really?
oh yeah, she turned me on to Sherlock Holmes when I was a kid.
Oh
Tarzan,
beautiful.
Sherlock Holmes. So I got the classics. I learned to read on Prince Valiant thanks to her.
Oh, actually, which is from Nova Scotia. The creator of
I,
that comic is from
Nova
Nova
Scotia,
Scotia. Yeah, there
exactly.
you go.
So
Nice
that's it.
connection.
Well,
Yeah,
I
there
mean,
you go.
there was a studio I used to. I started working with on a show, and unfortunately, we couldn't continue. I wish we did. Called Cartoon Conrad, and that's in Nova Scotia.
Oh, really? There's a few up here.
Yeah.
Yeah, mystery novels are something I just got into too. And actually, it's funny that you mentioned all this because I
Uh,
watched I watched The Devil in a Blue Dress the other day.
mm,
And I love that movie.
yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah,
fantastic. And then I
yeah.
discovered it's based on a book, and there's
Oh,
like
yeah.
15 of them. So I'm like,
Hey,
all right. Yeah,
settle
like
back. You got a lot of stuff to
I'm
read.
excited. Although it disappoints me more that like because that's the first book and that sets up
Yeah,
Easy Rollins as a
right,
detective at the end. And you're
right.
like, man, why didn't we have one of these every couple of years? Like I would just the series of those would have been amazing.
And it's weird because it's Denzel, so it made money. So
Yeah.
I don't know what the deal was. Hollywood. I explain this a lot to my nieces, siblings, sometimes my nephews, when they ask me, "Why isn't this? Why is that?" Goes, dude, it's like in that movie Chinatown. It's Hollywood.
Yeah.
It really, if you work here, you've been here. There is no rhyme or reason. Whatever is effed up, whatever. I don't know how far I can get colorful in my language.
Oh, as colorful as you like.
Okay, so as fucked up as everything can
Yep.
be, the best way is to put it under the chapter is Hollywood.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I imagine working within the Hollywood system must be like incredibly rewarding when things hit, but there must be way more things that you have to say that about than
yes,
actually like a lot more losses than victories, I'd imagine, when it comes to that
a
system.
lot. You get them equally.
Yeah.
I was. It's funny you should say that. Today I woke up to a Twitter. It was more than just Twitter. It was on Facebook. Well, it's because a friend of mine, he does like I do. He has Instagram, Twitter, and
Mhm.
Facebook, and then posts one thing on all three platforms.
Oh yeah.
And it was of a show we worked on that he doesn't realize I was that involved with it. He knew because I brought him on the show, but he doesn't know all the reasons why I left and everything. It's probably it was certainly the third worst thing, the second worst show I've ever worked on.
No.
Worst experience ever.
Uh,
And and you work on a lot of things. And another artist was talking about something I worked on and went, wow, you worked on this legendary thing. And I went, well, you take the good with the bad. Seriously. Yeah, if you're lucky in your life, you're gonna touch a lot of things that should be legendary. But if you knew the story behind it, it's heinous,
Oh yeah. Well, that's it. Like even
crap,
lately, I've been talking to several people that have kind of gone through the Marvel system as a writer. Like
Yeah.
Fred Van Lente, I just talked to not too long ago, and
Yeah.
him and he had some brushing with the studio system because that Cowboys vs Aliens movie, and
Oh,
there's
yeah.
a few other folks too.
That one.
Yeah. And
I'm not gonna tell you about that one.
Fabrice Sapolsky worked with Marvel. He co-created the Spider-Man Noir character, and just like they're kind of don't necessarily have the best, like they're respectful and happy about the work they've gotten in the past, but there's also like they feel a little slighted somewhat by the system, and I can't say I blame them really.
Oh yeah,
Especially Fabrice, like he created this character, and then they're just like, well, we're gonna go do 100 different things with it.
Yeah,
but he's not bitter because he knows that's the game. Like when you work on a character that someone else made and do your own version of it, it's still theirs.
Yeah.
So, and I guess you'd have some experience with that because you kind of got your start working for DC.
I started work for DC, yeah. And then I didn't do enough at Marvel to say I worked at Marvel, but I did.
Mm-hmm.
But not like at DC. It still breaks my heart that I didn't make 10 years at DC. I did 6 years officially before I just drifted into something else.
Mm-hmm.
Or honestly made a choice that I had to make a living elsewhere.
Yeah.
And until I could decide what to do beyond that. And that wound up being animation that I put in 30 years in. So yeah.
Well, hey, it brought you there. But
5 years here, so
how did you get into DC originally? Like how did you get in the door, I guess?
Honestly, it came through a couple of ways. I've answered this question so much that I don't want to drag it out.
No worries.
But no, I don't want. I just want to. My goal is to be entertaining, not to be boring. That's Hollywood. But two ways. One was I had the first. What brought me there was I had applied to a program that Dick Giordano had created. Dick Giordano being at the time the editor-in-chief at DC, or was becoming the editor-in-chief at DC. And he was also, and his other guys, as one of the best damn makers in the comic business. He was also Neil Adams. I don't know if they were still partners. They still talked, but at one time they were partners in the Adams studio continuity.
Oh, cool.
So Dick and him were like that. People forget when you saw Neil's Batman, that everyone, oh my God, Neil. Dick was the inker on that. So it really should have been Adams Giordano, but and Dick was humble enough not to push it and go, because the truth was he was really good at working with people and could, he was one of the few nicest guys in the business, and I owe him my career. I was not. I had a guy who was supposed to be representing a lot of artists coming out of Boston. I was living in Boston because I knew I had to get to New York. That's a long, convoluted story.
Slowly working your way up the coast.
I was slowly working my way up the coast. And the person who got me on that path is a whole nother thing. He's another famous person. But how I got to DC, was Dick he only had 30 spaces for this workshop thing he was putting together. And he got DC to go along with it. The thing was, there was no money in this. I mean, you weren't guaranteed you're gonna win. You were guaranteed if you're gonna get anything out of this, you will be able to work in comics. And Dick didn't care where. He specifically was gonna put you at DC. But if you're good enough, you got some work elsewhere. He was, go with God. You're in the business. And he had made his quota of 30 people. And this guy had told me, he said you weren't gonna get in. And I took him I took him at face value instead of, to this day, I have no idea why this person did this. But a friend of mine who was an author, sci-fi author, made me call DC and talk to Dick directly. Dick heard my name and said, "You're in the class." And no explanation, no nothing. I just know that, well, he didn't kick me out.
Hmm.
I'm going to make it. He gave me 6 months to get there. I got there in 6 months. I got into the class. And I still cannot remember because of the time, how long it took me. I don't know if it was 6 weeks, 6 months. I don't remember. You're just in it. I was
Yeah.
young, you were in it. And I was in the new talent. I thought I wouldn't say the worst guy, but I certainly didn't feel like I was just anybody special.
Hmm.
And then one day he told me to step out with him. And I thought, oh shit. Last time I saw somebody do this in that group, they were being led to the front door.
No.
He's taking me into the offices. So I was like, oh shit, he's going to throw me out the back door. I was nervous, man. But you loved Dick and you didn't argue with him. And
Yeah.
I worked my ass off and he still was always, which I'm grateful for because I do this with my artists today. I'm hardest on you when I have the most belief in you.
Hmm.
I'm soft on you when I feel like, you know what, you're not going to go anywhere. And there's no reason for me to beat you up. It's not going to help. It's not, I don't even want to beat you up, but if I'm going to be hard on you, it's because I see this potential. And Dick was like that. And Dick took me to the back office. I thought it was back office, but it was actually the office of Len Wein.
Oh, wow.
And there was Len Wein, Marv Wolfman, and George Perez. They were going up Titans pages. And George looks up and goes, yeah, Dick showed me your stuff. You're going to do good. And that was the first time I ever heard any praise. Like, what?
Wow.
And then, so that was given an assignment because someone who drew that book had died. And I found out, again, I've told the story so many damn times, I'm trying to keep it short. But they wanted me to finish his book. And the artist was Gene Day, very famous Canadian artist. Unfortunately, he had died and right in the middle of the assignment. And they wanted me to start from scratch. And Len took me aside and kind of, he really brought me into the business from there. Dick kind of handed them off. I see Dick in the hall, like, can't I come back to class? He goes, no, you're working. So I wanted to come back to class bad, man. I really talking about imposter syndrome. I hate that word now, but it's so true. You get this imposter syndrome. At the time, I thought that, but I was also, fuck, man. I didn't realize that once I got in, I was in. I didn't have time to bask in the glory. I had deadlines to meet.
It's funny about the imposter syndrome because, like, years can go by where you're still doing the same job and you're like, still haven't. You're like, after you've been like, I've been doing this for years now. Like, surely that feeling will go away, but still.
20 years, and I still wake up in the morning, have to, like, the person who got me, so which is ironic because I just spoke to this person recently and I wanted to put it out there. I haven't told anybody publicly about it, but when I was in Michigan, I got out of college and had a degree that was useless. Wanted to be an artist still. And no idea how I was going to do it. And I was reading what little fanzines at the time was talking to whatever pros were in the area. This is in Detroit. And the name Keith Pollard popped up. And Keith Pollard was a somewhat successful Marvel artist, as well as he had done primarily a lot of his work through Marvel because he used to work under Rich Buckler. If you don't know who he was, he's one of the premier.
Oh yeah, I knew his name. He worked on
artists.
Amazing Spider-Man. He did the cover.
He worked on everything. I mean, he worked on Spider-Man. He worked on Fantastic Four. He kind of followed Buscema because he did a lot of the books of Buscema, other than Spider-Man. Spider-Man was probably one of the ones that I would say was definitely that was him coming out as himself. But if you look, he did Thor. His Thor was very strong. He did Fantastic Four for a long time. Beautiful stuff on that.
Yeah, he's beautiful.
Follow Buscema. People always, I think that's one of the reasons people kind of, I think he should have had a Art of Keith Pollard book, but that's me. Anyway, I somehow got his phone number. I don't know how. I never thought I'd get to that point of age after dealing with so much detail that I'm like, shit, I don't know when that happened. But I got his phone number and I made a cold call to him. And he picked up. I started babbling. I'm some young artist. I don't know how to get into business. I wonder if you can tell me. And he invited me to his house. It was an hour and a half, about an hour away by bus, hour and a half by bus. But he said, you make to this bus stop. I'll pick you up and bring you over to my place. I did. And I had my little portfolio with me, and I went to his house, spent a couple hours talking to him. And the man set me straight on, you got to get out of Detroit. That was the first important thing to hear. Of course, I asked him the usual, am I good enough? Because that was really the question. Going to that imposter syndrome. I did not ever or have never met an artist before. I love this shit ever since I was a toddler. But I've never met art and never seen real art before until I saw Keith set up and was like, holy shit, this is what I want. Can I do this? And that was basically what I was asking him. Am I good enough to be this? And he goes, you can be if you want to. This has nothing to do about you being good. How much do you want this? And that's the second thing was, okay, you want this enough, you're going to have to leave Detroit and go to where they make comics. And that's New York, which is how I got on the path to Boston. But Keith's 2 hours with me was such, it's more than a spark. It was ignition. It set me on the path. From there, I was so focused. I mean, my sisters were like, I was working a really crappy job, a lot of bad crappy jobs. And but she was like, you were focused, man. You just did that. You didn't go out. I didn't do all those things anyway. Yeah. And all I did was save my money and try to make connections to move out. And my girlfriend at the time was still in school, and she and I met because she was helping with correspondence, met a guy who just sold something to heavy metal. He was in Boston. And that's how I got to Boston, because I went to him because he wanted us to become an art team and was going to try to do stuff for heavy metal. Once I got there, I realized how that was not going to happen.
No.
But that's a long story elsewhere. But that's different than what I've told everybody else. Now you got a little bit more information.
Oh, that's all right. Yeah, that's cool.
How I got to Boston. And then from Boston, finding out about Dick, and then going to New York, and finally getting that first book. The first book was Brave and the Bold. It was like 2 issues away from being canceled. So the last couple of books, I grew up reading Brave and the Bold, so to me it was an honor anyway.
Yeah, I would say.
It was an honor just to draw the damn thing. And I'm drawing Batman, for Christ's sake, my most favorite character. I think I love Batman more than Superman.
I think a lot of folks do.
Well, yeah, DC certainly do, because that's why you got 9 million Batman boxes.
Oh my god, and they got like overlapping ones now, and like it's just so like it's yeah. I do feel like I feel like DC almost, and this is, I've had this discussion with other creators in the show a lot, but I feel like DC almost apologizes for Superman a lot. They're almost like
that's their problem.
Yeah, they do, and that's what I hate about it. Because I'm like, I'm very excited to see what James Gunn's gonna do, because I feel like he has a reference for the character, and I might get like a hopeful, happy Superman that I've always wanted. You know, that I've never gotten in a movie.
This is the thing that's funny about Superman. Superman isn't supposed to be happy. What he is oh shit, I just lost the word. So much for being profound.
Well, yeah, I guess happy's not the right word, but like the idea that like
it's just, but he inspires.
Yeah, he's earnest.
He's
the hope's a big part of it.
That's the word I'm looking for. He's inspirational. He's intrepid. I tell people, you want to see the best Superman stuff, really see the best Superman stuff, and I'm not talking about, and I love Christopher Reeve, but honestly, that movie left a lot of guys like me feeling like, what the hell? But the show that messed my mind up, my brother's mind up, because my brother and I used to watch this stuff. He was my other big fan growing up with. I mean, except he used to look at the war books. I was into science fiction. Yeah. But the show that we used to mess our little minds up was The Adventures of Superman, the old George Reeves show.
Oh, yeah.
The color looked great. It was the black and white shows that really effed you up. Because it was Superman against kind of film noir villains.
Yeah.
And the gangsters were they doing heinous stuff. Guys, are you like, oh, you guys are going to get it. Oh, you hit Lois. Oh, my God, you tied that kid to a railroad track. And then here comes Clark. And when he turns to Superman righteously kicked your ass. I love that. These guys were stupid enough to always, he started doing this thing where they shoot him, he started smiling.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a nice smile. That was the thing. It wasn't like this, oh, you poor, it was like, oh, you stupid motherfuckers.
Yeah.
My father would say, my wonderful father who would be watching this with us, he'd be doing his track, which
Yeah.
is usually, oh, you dumb motherfuckers got it now. And so in my head, I'm thinking, Kal-El saying in Kryptonian, you stupid motherfuckers.
Yeah, that's
And
awesome.
that's the Superman that because he inspired,
Yeah.
he inspired. And you knew when he showed up, shit was gonna get done.
Yeah.
And that's the difference. And that's what DC lost with him.
Yeah.
That when he showed up, they kept putting in doubts because I mean, again, all this writing of the weaknesses. I mean, did you really need 29 different kryptonites?
Yeah.
They kept running out of powers from the dude because they fell into that more and forgot. When you look at, especially if you look at the old Superman comic strips, they worked it better. Again, they understood that he knew he was working in two worlds. He also knew when he was Superman what his role was. And I'm hoping, and I like to think James Gunn's going to get it, but I'm kind of, honestly, I'm so burnt out about all this stuff.
I get it.
I
feel
hope
that.
it works. I don't care.
Well, I know he said that it's kind of like the All-Star Superman is sort of an inspiration for what they're doing with the way they want the character depicted. And I'm a big Grant Morrison fan, and I really like that series. To me, it's kind of
did
like
a great job.
It's sort of the seminal book as far as like getting the idea of who the characters are.
Yeah.
But between that and like the animated show from the 90s, which is what I grew up on, that was like, because that Superman really felt like that sort of Superman too, right? So, and I love the Batman cartoon as well. So, you know,
sure. I love Batman. I mean, as much as things, I mean, to me now it's like you can have more fun. I like when people realize that Batman's more fun when you reflect him off the people who know him.
Yeah.
Meaning whenever, like, I love how him and Nightwing are now.
Mm-hmm.
Not this kind of, oh, you deserted me. Oh, you made me. It's more like, hey, Pops, look at you. Ha ha.
Yeah.
I can do this now. You're still a kid. You know?
Yeah.
It's older brother, big brother shit. I absolutely always love, pissed me off that they did this, but I don't read the book, so I don't give a shit. But I love Alfred. And I think that killing Alfred is like, what the fuck, man? You don't kill Alfred.
Oh, he'll be back. It's comics.
They all do.
It's comics.
It's that thing again where it's like people leaning into stuff because they really aren't as creative.
Well, it's all about pushing the envelope too, right? And like every writer is trying to do that or do something new and exciting. And sometimes it's like new and exciting isn't necessarily the best thing for the book. It's like
pushing the envelope is not pushing the envelope. That's taking the easy way out.
Yeah, it's like having Bane snap Alfred's neck. It's like such a horrible, you know.
Listen, I wasn't crazy about Bane breaking Batman's back either.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, I thought I liked the setup of Bane, but again, it was like, well, real pain would have been to psychologically break him.
Yeah.
Not just, break him. Kill Robin. That was ambitious. It was stupid. I was in DC at the time, and we didn't think anybody was going to take it seriously. And when they did take it seriously, it was like, holy shit,
So that's interesting because when you were there, like when that was happening, because didn't they have like a phone number that people could call in to? Yeah. So like, I love the concept because DC is one of the first with like
sleazy. It was sleazy as fuck.
Oh yeah, because like DC is one of the first.
Kill Robin.
Well, I love a friend of mine once brought this up. He works for Marvel now. He's an artist. David Cutler's his name, but he brought this up like because DC is one of the first with Animal Man and the Crisis on Infinite Earths and. To instigate this idea that comic characters can be aware that they're comic book characters. Yeah. It's like, can you imagine if like Jason Todd finds out that in the real world, like people voted if you stay alive, they could, and they voted to kill him, or like unanimously voted to kill him. Like it was drastically.
And it wasn't a huge margin, but it was big enough. It was. Here's the thing. That attitude is what they put into Red Hood anyway. So
that's true.
That belligerence stuff, you're not everybody's favorite Robin. You're the Robin that failed. You're the ghetto Robin.
Yeah. I guess. I mean, and people love him in the character he is now. So hey, maybe it came full circle.
I think it's a nice comeback. I mean, actually, the whole idea of the Bat family is more as much as we're just talking about overwritten. I love that about him, that he does have this family now. If you really think about it, it's like he created a family without even thinking. It's bad enough his guy's grandfather, taking care of him, And all of a sudden, he's got a son, he's got another son, he's got an actual son, he's
Yeah.
got daughters now. I mean, I love I forgot her name, Stephanie, the mute Batgirl. She's the
Oh,
better fighter of all of them.
spoiler, that one?
Spoiler is more associated with Tim as the
Right.
Bat. He brought her into the family. No, she was, I think, Stephanie Kane. Her
Oh,
father was
Cassandra
the
Cain.
Cassandra. That's it. So
Yeah.
yes, that's
The silent Batwoman, or she was for a
Silent
while. Yeah.
Batwoman. But I like her. It was Silent Batgirl.
Yeah.
I like her because, again, what works. It's almost like the reverse of the whole James Bond villain thing, where John Bond's villains all have to be damaged physically.
Yeah.
In some
Yeah.
way. Batman's case, they're all damaged emotionally.
Yeah.
They have these grand abilities, but they're also scarred for life.
Yeah.
And here's Stephanie, who she can speak, but she's never heard words. And now but she's now Batgirl. And I love that. It just, again, it's like, all right, you really want to look at Bruce. It's not, because I remember someone going on about, oh, he's so twisted. But it's like, the real world is complicated enough that we try to now explain it so well through our comics that we have to embrace the damage as a superpower.
Yeah.
It's not so much that. How about looking at the specialness?
Yeah.
A handicapped person really isn't handicapped.
I miss like the sort of Neil Adams, so more like the I'm trying to think of the artist right now, but like the hairy chested, like get in a sword fight with like Ra's al Ghul, like that Batman, like it was more of a detective, and it was like they were fun.
Well, I was just looking at Jim Apparel stuff because I was looking at, getting away from Neil.
Mhm.
It's hard to get away from Neil.
Yeah, it really is.
Another guy to me who really personified the Batman art was Jim Apparel, especially his early stuff, which he was sort of under an Adams kind of influence, but he still had that Jim Apparel, how do you call it? I wouldn't say cartooniness, but let's say it was definitely stylized.
Mhm.
And Jim drew him that he really put the Dark Knight in the Dark Knight. And I loved the way he drew those books. In fact, when I was starting to draw that, I looked at him more because I'm not Neil.
Mhm.
And I even went to see Neil when I got the assignment and was immediately struck on how encouraging. Neil was an interesting guy. If you worked under him, he's going to make you him.
Mhm.
He went out of his way to encourage you to become yourself if you're on your own.
Mhm.
And so I got that lesson from him and went to look at the guy who I felt stylized for me the best way for my approach on it. And that's why I looked at Apparel and loved Jim Apparel. And that's when you hear the legend of, wait a minute, he drew one page a day.
Mhm.
Drew, inked, lettered his own freaking page, one a day. So in 22 days, he always had a book in. Editors love that.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. But the artists and us will look at it and go, holy shit, man, that's like taking ownership of your work. You did it. And I really wish, we were talking earlier about how long I was in comics.
Mhm.
I would love to have had his kind of longevity. I would love to have had that work ethic of confidence of what he did. We don't speak enough about guys like that.
Yeah, well, that's it, right? I mean, you forget about the deadlines of these industries and how, like, you can be the most talented artist in the world, but if you can't get things in on time, it's what's the use of you?
Well, I was at a time when I was sort of thinking of coming back, when I would hear what these guys go through. It doesn't matter go through there was a certain, I hate to say arrogance, because we're living now in the threat of AI, which is trying to use as its argument that artists are arrogant elitists and that anyone should be an artist. And it's like, bullshit, get out of your stupid ass. But there was this moment where artists, the work of art, the business of comics, which is brutal by itself, was being sort of manipulated, where guys would not come in on their deadlines because they were doing this great piece of art. So books got shoved behind, and publishing got effed up, and payments got screwed up.
Mm-hmm.
And for guys who were working their asses off, they got caught up in the mechanism of that and not able to make a living.
Yeah.
Because, they were too busy. I mean, myself, when I came into comics, I didn't realize I was drawing 2 books a month. I was covering a lot of fill-in stuff, as well as waiting for the book that they wanted to put me on.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just drawing my ass off. And you draw to the point where, you know, you want to accommodate. But as far as creativity went, I didn't have time. I really wish I could. When I think about apparel, it's like, you sat down and inked. I really wished I had trust myself to ink myself.
Yeah.
Within those time periods. But
There's a lot of trust involved with that because you'd like literally have to hope your art is going to be cared for, at least enhanced, and not you know taken away from a poor inker.
Yeah, and that's again the business of comics. We want to have the time to do great work. You hope to be allowed the time to do great work.
Mm-hmm.
Often you're not, and for those who can, I always was jealous, envious for those who took that time, but also looked at it like, that's a little indulgent, ain't it? You know, that's a deadline, man. You can't take it, you can't do it in 8 weeks. Or at least 8 weeks at the beginning, and let's work on how they let you get that 8 weeks done. And I know editors who did try that, as well as editors who like kept lying, saying, oh, this is done in 3 days. And you find out later, yeah, you just saved his ass, but it could have been done in a month.
Yeah. The editor role is an interesting one too. I had Mike Carlin on the show not too long ago, and we got into the whole death of Superman thing and all that, but we are just sort of getting into the vibes of the the editor's role per se and his sort of way of approaching those sort of things.
Yeah.
But huge books like that are just like the amount of work involved with keeping the whole crews together that are working on this stuff. Like you were working on Justice League, so you must have had a huge amount of was that the fun Justice League, like the funny one with the Guy Gardner and all that. I have it here, but I wasn't sure what version of it you were on because I know there were quite a shifting level of how many.
Put it this way, I was before all that, and I wished I had gotten that.
Okay.
I came in on a really uncomfortable moment of flux where the writer of the book, Jerry Conway, I think had done it for, I would say definitely over 10 years.
Oh, a long time, yeah.
I want to say 20 years, but he definitely had, I mean, I was reading it when I was a fanboy, and Dick Dillon was drawing it then. Not my favorite period of Justice League as a fan. I liked when George came in. He was different. But the stories were tough, meaning you never knew if you were going to get a good one. But that's the danger of comics anyway. I like Harry's stuff on Spider-Man. When I met him, that was the thing I was gushing over. Before everybody was being derisive about the clone stuff, I loved the Spider Clone original.
Oh, yeah.
Twisted. And I knew what he was trying to do, and which I admired, which was he was trying to grow Peter Parker, mature Peter Parker away from the teenager shit into being more of a man.
You can only have Aunt May making him wheat cakes for so long.
Yeah, even that shit was getting weird. It was weird when she's marrying Doc Ock.
That's a fun part of comic history I still love. I'm still like, that's just something I'm still.
It's messed up, but God, it was like, come on.
Especially when they brought like the Superior Spider-Man around and they kind of like did a few little nods to it, like when he was in Peter's body, pretending to be Peter.
Yeah, that shit.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
I mean, that's the fun later, but at the beginning of all this was But with Justice League, it's like, okay, so Jerry wants to leave the book. He's burnt out. A lot of reasons, and if you ever talk to him, you can find out why.
I'd love to.
I won't out him here. Other than that, I mean, I was always grateful that he worked with this newcomer at the beginning. But the sad part was we started to work. I got his script, which was should get the numbers right. I want to say it's 217, but put it this way,
that's what it says on your wiki.
Is it? Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
There you go. You're good.
For God's sakes, Wiki won't lie, will it?
No, there's no way you're going to put false information.
No, Wiki was always.
Not Wiki, that's right.
It's funny that they don't even get my age right, which is okay because everybody thinks I'm 6 years younger than I am.
Oh, hey, take that.
I'll take it. Well, now I was at 3. They gave me 3 more years, but bless them. But the harshest thing about it, because I love Justice League, by the way, I have to say, when I got that, that was one of those moments you went, holy shit, man, this is what I've always dreamed of. Of the DC books growing up, Justice League was mine. Maybe because it had everybody in it, it had all my favorites in it: Wonder Woman, Superman, Batman, Martian Manhunter, Aquaman, Green Arrow. Green Arrow was always kind of low until Denny and Neil did something with him, but he was always kind of to me, you want to be Batman,
Yeah,
but
like a
still,
much lamer version. That.
which we actually had fun on the Brave and the Bold show because he was constantly whining about, Batman had a Batmobile, I had an Arrow car, and it's like, dude, come on. That was we can go on forever about that show. That was
Oh,
one
that's cool.
of the
But
animated shows I worked on.
well, the
But
stuff that you would like, because you created like a few characters that have gone on, like Gypsy and Vibe, right? Or
yeah, but
you
that was
done
that came again. That came a year after I spent a year on Justice League,
Mm-hmm.
drawing Justice League, well, in its flux, meaning I had multiple writers come through.
Right, of course.
Started a script, got burnt out. I had to put that book aside and then jump on my official first became Paul Kupperberg's. He did a script, and
Right.
that became my first one. But my first one didn't come up again until 7 books later.
Oh, wow.
But
Okay.
when Jerry came back, and he sort of reluctantly came back, I didn't know. I could tell in a way. And long story short, though, it was like the multiple writers were annoying. The multiple inking got crazy because I didn't have anybody I could really fit with and grow with. That was the thing people didn't realize too. I mean, I was very aware I was a rookie, and I was very aware of trying to. And you have all these other rookies coming in, and they were all just flying and being whoever they are, and I was still trying to find my place. And I'm seeing these guys being inked by guys who I would have loved to have been inked by. I would have died to have been inked by Joe Sent. I would have died to be inked. I got inked really briefly on a who's who, a couple of who's who's by Frank Giacoa, who
Oh, wow.
Frank Giacoa and Joe Sennett were for me the Marvel inkers I wanted to work with. Those are the guys I went, oh yeah, they did all the stuff I loved. and I saw myself, just like when Dick inked me on a Justice League, that was in my mind the closest I ever saw how I wanted to see myself portrayed. And I loved his work for that. And he surprised me that day by doing it. To this day, it's still my favorite Justice League that I did. Where he inked all the covers anyway, but he did the interior. I don't even know why he did it. He just did it one day. And then I found out later, Dick inked this. Holy shit, you're right. And I think that was the most touching moment on Justice League at that time. And then Jerry came back, and then that's when we created we didn't call it the Detroit Justice League. It just became that. It was always in my mind Justice League of America, but calling it Justice League Detroit was also kind of a fan. It was supposed to be a dismissal. It was supposed to be an insult. And thank God we didn't. It's the same way as when people talk about Black exploitation and they want to make it insulting. It's like, no, it really should be called Black achievement. Exploitation, because
that
brothers and sisters got to work.
Well, those movies saved Hollywood. Like there's that document. The documentary, is it on Netflix? Is that the one?
Yeah.
Is This Black Enough for You? That one, like it's super good. I remember, like I love those movies. So I remember like watching the doc, and I didn't realize how like dire straits Hollywood was, and how those movies really saved it.
Well, yeah, I mean, Hollywood's had trouble. I always felt like, and I was a media student, so a lot of this was stuff I researched and read. I was more in media. I was in journalism, but I really gravitated strongly to the media, which is ironic that I got into television. But Hollywood has always been, or was separated. Film has always been in kind of trouble since the creation of television. It's simple because television brought the whole spectacle of film to your home.
Yes.
Sure, you didn't have all the big screen, didn't have all the food, but you didn't have to deal with the driving, the people, having to leave your house.
Yep.
You had commercials, but you didn't care at the time. They let you go to the bathroom if they had a commercial.
Yep.
So you get a sandwich, whatever. So, but television became competitive. And so Hollywood all of a sudden found, even with all its shticks, it couldn't compete with this little fucking box that came to your house every day. And it got better. It got better. Now it's in color. Now it's 12-inch to 24-inch. Now it's a console. And it's now bigger than that, and it goes on and on and on. So Hollywood has had a problem with that for the longest, and you learn to live with it. Now we
Yeah.
got television movies on television.
Yeah,
You know,
well, it's like almost everything
on
is.
television.
Well,
Um,
I can't remember the last TV show I watched. It's all a streaming show or something, right? Like
yeah,
they're
yeah,
considered TV because you can watch them through those, but
yeah.
it's weird. Um,
Yeah.
cool.
Anyway, I veered off that whole
No,
thing.
it's all right. Just so eventually you transition into cartoons, and
Yeah. No one calls it cartoons anymore. I love that.
animation.
No, I'd rather we go back to calling it
I
freaking
like cartoons, man.
yeah,
I was born in '85. I'm like 38. They were cartoons when I was a kid.
oh God,
Looney
yeah.
Tunes, Looney
No
Tunes.
cartoons. No,
Yeah.
anyway.
So, was there any inspiring event that chased you into comics, or were you just
Oh yeah,
decided you wanted to change? Oh, really?
huge. It was a huge event.
What was
Yeah,
that?
paying rent.
Oh, that's a big event. That's a
It's a
very
big
important
risk.
event.
When you gotta make money, you're at a it was a weird crossroads because I never wanted to leave comics,
Hmm.
and yet I couldn't find a place to fit.
Hmm.
And doing an indie comic, it was just so much going on that it would take too long to go into, and I'm not ready to go into that aspect.
Sure.
I'm sort of exploring it now and realizing, yeah, you're dealing with a lot of that.
Mm.
And and yet still, and that's the part I have to give, dealing with a lot of shit and still functioning,
Yeah.
still surviving,
Yeah.
finding a way to survive. What I didn't do is give up. I just found, okay, where can I put my hat? Where can I need to go back to school, but I can't go back to school. Where can I go and make a living and learn and grow? And hopefully take that back to comics. And that was animation, working in cartoons. Opportunities opened up where they needed artists who were, you work in comics, man, you've done it all.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you're coming in and able to fit into roles that they needed two people to do. I can do characters, I can do props, I can do backgrounds. All of a sudden, that's three artists you just made up for. So I was like that guy that can go, no, give it to him, give it to him.
Yeah, I never thought of that. That makes perfect sense. I know, like that you have the experience in all those levels. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
And
guess
it
it's
was
very
a
more
time
specialized.
where, again, it was still new enough, and animation was so specialized. I never wanted to be an animator. And it's not a put down on animation. It's just harder. You talk to a real animator, and you're now back into the world of math. I don't want to deal with all that. That's a lot. Timing and things of that. Even the stuff I've done as a director is all from my gut, all from experience, but not because I'm an actual animator. Don't ask me to sit down and time something. I would do it in my head and tell you what I want and can see what I want. But I'm not one who's always been, I've done that with comics when I've sat in the basement and drew. As an animator, and you're animating in the basement and doing that, that's a whole different story. You got to have all these other tools and things, and then you got to bring it out into the world, and it takes time. That's the other thing. When I got in animation, it was more or less the factory syndrome of we need to pump out these many cartoons, these many shows. We need people who can fit in these places. Now we need now in our art department, we do need prop guys. Now we need background guys. Now we need character guys. Learning how I learned on the job. It wasn't me going to CalArts or going to that's not a bad thing. You're going to be an animator or want to be an animator. I would tell someone, yes, you should take an animation course. You should learn these things. Cut through the shit that I had to go through, which was learn on the job. I don't think those days will ever happen again. I know they won't happen again.
I talked to Stephen Gordon, Stephen E. Gordon, who like worked with Ralph Bakshi, and he just like got a job at a high school working on the Lord of the Rings movie. Like, and just learned everything along the way. And it's like that you don't like. I was floored by that story. I'm like, nobody's getting that story nowadays.
Well, that's the equivalent of me in comics. Got into comics. I draw. I didn't. I mean, whatever art education I had did not help me at all as an artist. Everything I did was basically self-taught. Meaning, I looked at comics, copied that. Looked at art books, copied that. I didn't have an instructor in illustration, which I pray to God I did. I wanted an instructor in painting illustration, which showed me just how to fucking do realistic paintings. All these damn abstract guys telling me stuff. There's no way in hell I'm going to become the next Jackson Pollock.
I was just going to say, here's a Jackson Pollock. Let's transition that to comics.
It's a pickup. I mean, and creating distractors, I respect that. I love it. There is some abstract stuff I love. I used to
Mhm.
love Kandinsky stuff, but that's not me. That's
Yeah.
not what I wanted to draw. That's not what I wanted to paint. But I wasn't in the area and didn't get the right directions. I mean, my brother got to go to the one high school that was like considered um, the artistic. This was a high school that it was called Cass Tech,
Mhm.
and it's known as that perform a lot of performers from Motown, a lot of artists from the Michigan, Detroit area all went through there. He was encouraged to go there. I had to go to Detroit Northern, which was your rock bottom, hard edge high school, ghetto high school, that did not have that kind of program. They had good people there, but they didn't have that kind of program where they were turning out professionals or getting you geared towards professionals. How I did, I had to go on my own. And that was heartbreaking on one hand. On the other hand, it's like, hey, who's sitting here with the Emmy? You know,
Yeah.
so
Actually, I was
that's
going to say you may be my first guest that's an Emmy Award winner, which is pretty
oh,
cool.
thanks.
And what you got for working on
Team
Spawn,
effort.
right? Yeah.
I got up for Spawn. I do mean that. It was a team effort.
Well,
But
absolutely. But like, how did you transition from just like, at what point did you get to direct animation, like going on from just doing all the different
ooh,
roles they need?
I used to joke that all my jobs came through somebody falling down.
Hey,
And
like you can't, it's
unfortunately,
not like you did it. You didn't make them fall,
I didn't. No, I didn't.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
was at the right place at the right
Mm.
time, and I was working. And by this time, I'm jumping through a lot of animated shows. I'm at DIC called Deke, which
Oh yeah.
was most despised but most successful animation studio in Hollywood. And
Oh, they did a lot of stuff, man, when I was a kid. That was
Deke
almost
did a
everything.
tremendous amount.
Oh yeah.
Deke did a tremendous lot of stuff and was hated for it. But everybody wanted to hire you away because you knew how to fucking put a show together.
Yeah,
We had the
100%.
most talented people working for us in that situation.
Oh
Anyway,
yeah.
I
That
was part of development. I used to work in development, which meant that a lot of the shows came through my hands, a lot of my department's hands to be made to shows.
mhm.
And often when these things happened, depending on the vibe, they want you to, I look at the shows that they were first cut. I would see them being prepped because I was the guy that did the presentation on it. So I would know what the client was asking for, or, at least getting in the hands of someone who can take it from there. And I remember we got Swamp Thing,
Mhm.
which was ironic because one, it was like, holy shit, the comic book was going nuts. This is when Alan Moore was writing. But there was no way in freaking hell Hollywood was going to adapt what he was writing.
Mhm.
They will
Nope.
now. They kiss his ass now.
Oh
But
yeah.
at that time, this was so subversive. They wanted this is a happy, joyous. This is what I mean by happy, joyous. They wanted a happy, joyous Swamp Thing who had
Yeah.
toys. So we had really got off with toys attached to this thing, got off with toy mutants attached to this damn
Mhm.
property. But it was being made into a miniseries. And they also had one of the networks looking at it hard for Saturday morning. The idea of Swamp Thing as Saturday morning just kills my
Well, that movie they made, like with Adrian Barbeau, like that's pretty far.
mind.
Like that was their their weird Hollywood version of Swamp Thing that was like
I
incredibly
would have
strange.
loved to have a tenth of that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
At
yeah.
the time, anybody wanted a tenth of anything.
That's
Adrian
true. Yeah.
Barbeau was in.
Oh,
But
100%. Yeah. Still.
no, she was an icon.
Oh yeah.
And but that's not what we're going for. We're doing the same stupid thing we did with everything. The
Mm.
only thing we didn't have give the kids, I give them credit. We didn't give them a dog. We didn't give them a pet.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
But we had the quintessential, the white kid, the black kid, the
Yeah.
Native American. Well, we went to the whole gamut.
Oh, the
And
Captain Planet vibe.
oh yeah, this is
Yeah.
before Captain Planet. That's the irony.
Yeah.
This is before Captain
Oh
Planet.
yeah, I guess it would be. Yeah,
So,
shit.
oh yeah,
Okay.
no,
Yeah.
trust me. I was one of the guys. Well, okay, I was the guy who created Captain Planet. Helped create Captain Planet.
Wow,
So
okay.
this is how I got it because of freaking Swamp Thing. So,
Yeah, it's like it's about the earth and plants. It works.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, no,
Same
believe me,
skills.
it was a lot of things about Captain Planet that owed a lot from Swamp Thing, but
That's
that's
hilarious.
we'll either get that or don't. But the guy who was directing it was an old hand, old school OG animating veteran who was coming down to the end of his career, and he really wasn't able to follow it. He had problems, and I knew the character. That was one of the reasons I was at deep in putting that department, because I was their comic book guy.
Mm-hmm.
No, you worked in comics, you know comics. And not just knew it, I knew it with respect, as opposed to these jackasses who sit there and go, yeah, Superman guy, he's kind of a pussy. It's like, what the frick, what do you know, dude?
Yeah.
And then I go to him and tell him about George Reeves, So look at Kurt Schauffenberg, that is not a pussy.
Yeah.
And but I was there to do that. And so here's Swamp Thing, and this was a weird character, and they're like, we don't know what to. And I'm looking at this going, God, Jesus. I'm reading the comic religiously because I'm really loving it. Len Wein was my first editor. Love the Bernie Lynn stuff. That's the first Swamp Thing. We couldn't even put that in this, even though it was like a bastard version of that.
It's such a weird character to turn into like a superhero, essentially.
Here's how one exec told me. He's kind of like Godzilla, isn't he? This is the kind of thinking, I wish I should have written a lot of these things down. Stupid shit I've heard from people.
Oh, God.
And I remember and used to throw at my crews, and they would put it on Post-its and made this wall of Post-its of stupid things I've heard, stupid things I've said about them. But, so here we are in Swamp Thing. The director was really having a hard time, so he's going to be taken off, and they needed someone to pick it up. Now, again, I've done the presentation. I have not directed yet. I have not really art directed yet. I've art directed what I've done in development, but that's not the same as the show. He's already got the show going, so it's a matter of finishing up the storyboards. And as a guy, again, I'm a comic book guy, so I know how to read. I know how to storytell, but I have now learned the film language to make it work in storyline. So I got thrown in there to do that. Wow. And the guy who taught me how to become a director was my editor. Bless his heart. And he was from a long line of editors. His father was an editor. I think his mom was an editor. His sister was an editor. Oh. And he was working there. And I wound up becoming a team with him on 3 of the shows where he brought me through on what it was we're looking at through the moviola. So we did the old school moviola.
Okay, cool.
He did the cut and the paste. And he even had me do it once. And I freaked out. He cut it. I said, right, He did it just to fuck with me. But still.
That's an important skill to have.
Oh, dude, it was wonderful to work with him. He was such a great teacher. And I owe my being a director because of him. Wow. Taught me about editing and storytelling. Cool. And that's how I inherited Swamp Thing. To this day, people don't even know how how Deke or DC got the license and why DC let them have the license. But money spoke.
Oh yeah. That explains almost everything in Hollywood. Whenever I hear something like, and I always think of that clip in The Simpsons when Bart is like talking to Krusty about when he goes to they have Camp Krusty and it's like a terrible place. Yeah. And then he's like, how could you lend your name to such a shoddy product? And he's like, it's not my fault. They drove a dump truck full of money up to my house. I'm not made of stone. It's like,
going to history as the ultimate behind the scenes FU of business, because everything in there is so true.
It's so good.
What we went through. So
eventually worked on several projects, including Turtles, and made your way to Spawn on the HBO Spawn show, which it's funny. I just started watching. I missed that as a kid because I was too young when it was on HBO, and my parents didn't have HBO anyway. But I've just, because I was talking with a gentleman that I worked on the show, Charles Rader. Mr. Rader?
Oh, Brad?
Yeah, Brad. Sorry, Brad Rader. Yes. So I got the show and I started watching it. Man, it is like, for the time period, and how cool that show is. Like, it's so cool. I remember, like, as a kid, it was like, you get your animated cartoons, you're watching your but then you see like just little glimpses in commercials and stuff for the super dark, blood and nudity, and you getting everything, like, and to go back and watch it now. Just seeing where everything has come since, it was so ahead of its time. It's super cool.
It was. And it still is. I mean, I still hold up Spawn as the real achievement of what adult animation should be.
Agreed.
American adult animation. I mean, Japanese have been doing this forever. So.
Oh, great. Yeah, but I would love to see more. Like, the one thing I thought of, I was watching The Boys, and like they had a series in between the seasons where they had animated ones, and one of them was animated to and like Invincible, of course, another one that
Yeah,
they
yeah.
did.
I was gonna say Invincible.
Yeah, but they had one episode that was basically the boys' comic animated. And it was like done in the same style that the characters look like they did in the comics with Huey and Butcher. And it was so cool. And I'm like, now that they're growing that audience that we can get more of that sort of stuff. It makes me happy because there's so many books that could be done so much better if they were just done in animation instead of trying to make a live action thing.
Yeah. I mean, and vice versa, you also have things that are being adapted. Like I always go back to you want to see, I mean, The Boys is great, but The Watchmen
Yeah.
live action show blew away for me what
it was
supposed to do.
so good.
And so in time to what Alan would never watch it.
No, I think he's vocal about he's vocal saying like I don't give a crap.
I don't blame him. You move on. But
Yeah.
I would say that it definitely has more of the spirit of what he intended than the damn movie did. And it's so well done. It's so mind blowing. And I love it for all those reasons.
I
But
totally
yeah,
agree.
the cool thing about Spawn was that we were out the gate first doing that. And unfortunately, we almost had another chance of doing it again, but that's been shown. So,
Oh no, really? No.
yeah, that was with that. You're 10 years too late. I actually did a Spawn movie that was hopefully it was going to be we didn't know if it was going to be a mini series or a movie. I think it was going to be a movie because I think it wound up being 72 minutes. And we knew it was going to be the harbinger of a new Spawn series. But Todd got into litigation with the studio, got into a fight who owned what, who paid where. And that went through 10 years. He won out, still got the film, but it was 10 years too late. By this time, we now moved on to different styles, CGI, tunes shaded, blah, blah, blah. And that script, honestly, is a little dated from what he was doing at the time. At the time, it was very timely. Now what we're doing is slow. So I don't know what's going to happen. I doubt I'll be associated with it because it's.
I feel like last I heard they were still talking about another live action one was sort of the plan.
Yeah, he's always talking about a live action.
Yeah.
I tell people, you know what? Wait till you see it. That's all you can do. Don't believe the hype. See it when you see it. He's got Blumhouse behind it.
That's what it was. I knew it was a studio that was kind of a big studio, and I couldn't remember what it was. But with James Wan and them connected, like totally now, that'll be interesting to see if that happens because it seems right up his alley too.
Maybe he's got a lot of dingles on there. We'll see what happens.
That's true. Well, what are you working on nowadays? Like, what's next for you?
I'm now in a transitional spot of I'm not working on anything. I'm actually been retired. So I've been quietly kind of segueing out and trying to figure out what's my next step.
Yeah.
I was looking for other things, but I've been finding that the nature of shows is that they want younger. And so we go through this moment where it's like, all right, I come in with this experience. You want that experience, and yet you don't want that experience.
Well, that's how it works. Like that's how you train younger to be like yourself, like going in with and learning on the job. Like
if I've been swamped by jobs if there was more people with like when you did. But I've had a lot of people talking and nobody delivered. So I decided, you know what? This is the time for me to really think about the thing that I kept running from, which is do my own thing. So I'm working on whatever that's going to be.
Well, I'm excited. I'm very excited to see what that's going to be.
Yeah. I'm excited and also scared. I have a friend who actually worked on Spawn, and she was one of the head writers, and she, I guess, is working on her own project. Her son was telling me, she's got this wild, crazy project, and I'm like, whatever you do, tell your mom, don't quit, do it,
Yeah.
She just said she's on the verge, like, do it. Don't even think about if you're gonna. And that's what I have to tell myself. Just do it. Because I've done enough with other people's properties that for 5 minutes, I was involved with Invincible.
Oh, really? Cool.
Yeah. I already done an X-Men show that I had to leave. And I was even talked to at the beginning of this X-Men 97. And you get to a stage where you hear the same crap over and over again. And it's like, gee, if you guys really want to do something new, and you got these people who can do it, why don't you let us do it?
Yeah.
but they don't. They just want to regurgitate shit. And I just realized that's not what I want to do. I spent X amount of years doing that
Yeah.
on lesser properties or on greater properties.
Yeah.
And the thing always cracks me up is like, Spawn, that was so unique because we came out the door going, we're not doing what everybody else is doing. And I don't hear any of these people saying that.
Yeah.
But when they do, they still find a way to fall back on the usual.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
all right, you know what? Do your thing.
Yeah, I often quote that. I think it was Dennis. No, Dustin Hoffman, who said like the problems with movies as a art is that they're a business, and the problems with movie as a business they're an art. And
Absolutely.
it's true. Like everybody, like I always find that so funny, and I know that there's a whole huge part of the system that's working behind the scenes that the regular person like me wouldn't see. But the idea that it's like you hire an artist for their vision, for what they can do. You've seen what they've done for, and you're like, okay, I know what you're capable of. I'm hiring you because of this. Now come do this, but then change everything. Don't do the stuff that you want to do. Like change everything to match. I'm going to put you in a box, and you have to work within this box. And it's like, look what they did when they weren't. Like let them. It's like hiring someone to paint your house, and then standing behind them, and telling them every detail about what you want them to do or where you want them to go around the gables. Like just do it yourself. Like,
oh my God, welcome to Hollywood.
Yeah.
I can't tell you. Yeah, I had a friend who was in the middle of a production, and somebody came in and he was dealing with these execs, and this exec was getting off on just this eye. She didn't understand the eye, and why is it drawn that way? And he just, instead of trying to argue her, he just handed her the pencil. Got him fired, but
I can imagine the impulse.
That statement because it was like, dude, if you're gonna be that nitpicky about it, and it's not even you don't even have the ability to do this.
Yeah.
So qualify it, change it the way you want it. Show me you're right.
Yeah, I think most people just want to justify their own jobs. They say, "Well, I made this better because I told him to do that, and he did it, and now it's better." When it would have been
scary
fine
part
before.
is it's not just in animation. I see that. I saw that in comics. I see that in comics now.
Yeah.
What I because that's all bummer shit. The good stuff I see is a lot of independent stuff coming up that's exciting, and some people who are putting their ass on the line to do their vision. And you see it, you go, wow, yeah, that's what I want to see. And then Hollywood swoops in and tries to get them to repeat that. But that's, the cool thing is they do that. There is that possibility. And now we got, because you're talking about people without visions, desperate to have a vision. So they need you.
Yes.
And the first thing they want to do is just go in there and, walk the same walk. Now we're in the AI territory.
Yeah, hell yeah.
I just saw someone who should know better, an animator or an animation vet, was going on about, well, this may not be a bad thing. It's just a tool. A tool is like anything, can be used for good or bad. It's still the crazy mind behind it that screws it up. You're seeing the thing because now you want to do tons of your bad movies that couldn't be made. You got ripped off by the boot studios, but now you're rather join them. You rather join them, not beat them. It's not a matter of beating; it's getting compensation.
Yeah.
Nobody's saying you shouldn't have this happen. We know it's going to happen. It's progress.
Yep.
But I'm saying make it fair.
Yes.
Let's make it fair, and making it fair is paying the artists.
Nothing's created in a vacuum, right? You like the AI just takes our existing artist's work and then changes it. So
that again, what we often forget is that the computer isn't sitting there making this decision.
No.
It's not playing Ultron and going, you humans are stupid. No, it's some stupid human behind him going,
telling it what to do. Yeah, exactly.
I want to do that, and I want to make a ton of money so I can get out and be rich and then sell my property and become Elon Musk. And it's like, yeah, thanks, buddy. Yeah. So, and all of the people you're stealing from, let's not compensate them because they're gatekeeping.
Yeah, no.
There's two things I thought I'd never ever be vocal about, and in my old crankety old age, I'm finding I'm more vocal. Politics and this kind of shit.
Yeah, I know. I know it's at my at 38 I'm just sort of like, even now I just feel like you pick and choose your battles, and sometimes some of them come up and you're just like, it's not worth it. I'm not arguing with a stranger on the internet about
No,
politics, so, or but sometimes there's certain things, especially creative types. I'm a graphic designer and I made my own little independent comics, but
yeah,
nothing crazy. And you pick your lines, but sometimes creatively you just kind of got your lane and you go with it.
yeah,
But
fights. But you get to a stage too, like in my case, where it's like, okay, for me to go in, I have to subvert, just completely ignore everything I know,
mm,
and just become a member and forget and just take the money and run.
mm,
And you get a spot in your life where you go, fuck that. I
yeah,
got my work got to stand for
yeah.
that. I see a lot of young guys fighting the fight, and I'm proud of them that they're speaking up. When I was that age, we didn't. We were so happy to be working, you didn't want to rock the boat. Now I'm seeing guys rocking the boat like crazy because they realize, wait a minute, this boat's all we got. And if we don't rock it, if we don't stand up, and I feel for every young artist coming into the business now, because you got to know 3 times more than I do. I may
Mm,
have all this experience of 30 or 40 years, but now you got to come to the door with less experience, but more knowledge on how to do that without even knowing what you're doing. But
yeah,
you got to know that. And oh,
yeah.
by the way, you're not going to get compensated,
No.
not the way I'm compensated.
Hmm.
So it's hard. I've had to talk to a young artist about staying in the business recently because and it's funny, it was like hearing my younger self talking to Keith Pollard asking, am I good enough? And I was like, you're as good enough. It's just, are you? It's not even a matter of tough enough. Can you survive this shit?
Yeah.
Are you willing to learn to do this to get by and keep a bit to yourself to do your own thing? Can you hold on to your own vision
Mhm.
while you're doing this job? And by the way, it's okay to do this job, but don't take it home. Know when to cut it off, know when to do it, know when to save some for yourself. That's the fight. If you're willing to do that, yeah, you're all right. You're gonna be all right. You're gonna be real. I'm saying be realistic. Stop being idealistic
Yeah.
because they're
Oh,
gonna take advantage of it. They're sitting there like freaking vultures. And I mean like they execs, computer
uh,
guys,
yeah.
independent publishers. But there's also it's funny. It's like, again, in my younger years, I didn't want to be the fighter. And
Yeah.
now I'm older, and it's like, I just want to kick somebody's ass now.
Yeah.
That's
Well, I was
not,
gonna say that advice is like, that's fantastic advice, and it's true. But
if it helps a young artist become who they are, then that's all. That's my job.
well, I can't think
I
of
want to be a teacher, but I found that a lot of the guys that I brought to business, I did teach.
mhm,
And I often realize I'm teaching them shit that I didn't know.
yeah.
I did teach them stuff, the good people. This is stuff when Dick threw me out there was teaching me, or
Yep.
when Lynn was giving me stuff to do. When Neil kicked me, or he didn't kick me, Neil gave me some great advice about becoming my own man.
Yeah.
I can join up and become safe, or I can go out there and be my own man. Being my own man meant, all right, I accept my responsibility. I accept work, I accept who I am. And then I have to fight and keep and maintain that. I could take the safer job, and I did. I went into deep for 8 years,
Hmm.
but I learned how to be a director.
Yeah.
I didn't expect that I was going to be a director. In fact, my editor friend was like, "Well, what's so great about this? You don't even want to be a director, but you're going to be a good director.
Yeah.
You'll be a great one. That's up to you, but you're going to be a good director because you're coming into this wide-eyed, interested, and growing despite yourself. And that person's passed on, but I like to think everything I've done, I did because of him. And I'm grateful for that. So my job is to do that to the next group. That's how I look at
Oh
it.
well, I'm hoping the project that whatever your own project is well, I'm sure it'll be providing that for a lot of the newer generation.
I'd be grateful if I have a good time. I remember reading something Matt Wagner said. You know Matt
Oh
Wagner
yes,
is.
absolutely, Grendel.
Like I love his stuff, but what he said really hit me. He doesn't go for perfection. He's not even going for being liked. What he's going for is satisfaction.
Mm,
And I
that's
went,
really good.
yeah, I like satisfaction. I love when I do something I like and it comes out well.
Well,
That's the goal.
it's funny because I can't remember the quote, but somebody once said like art, like being an artist, you never really like. I guess like there were artists back in the day, like big artists, painters. That like once their paintings were taken and put in galleries, they would still go in the galleries and try to add to them. And
Oh
at
yeah,
some point, people have to say
yeah.
the art, it's done. Like you're done, the art's done. But like you have to figure out like art's never really finished. It's usually
Yeah.
just taken away from the person working on it 'cause it has to be.
Oh,
So
Zeta, how many times have he repainted his shit?
yeah.
You know, and you look at it and go, well, what was wrong with the first time? Greg didn't like it, damn it. Greg didn't like it. God bless him. Man. It's like,
Well, I
you
don't
know,
want to. I don't want to take any more of your time, Chuck. Thank you so much for being on the show, man. I really
thank you
appreciate
for
it.
having me. It was a lot of fun. Thank
This
you.
was a real pleasure, and I'm looking forward to seeing the next project.
Thank you. Well, me too.
Thanks again.
Take care, Andre.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
There it is, my conversation with Chuck Patton. A very cool talk with a very cool guy. Very grateful to have him on the show and, get to talk about all the cool stuff. He did so many cool projects. And I'm excited to finally get through that HBO Spawn series. It was one of those things as a kid that was like there's an allure to it, right? Like my parents didn't have HBO, so I couldn't really watch it. I saw an ad somewhere on TV, like the internet wasn't, up and rolling the way it is now. And I was really hoping to someday get a chance to watch it, and the day never really came. I know there are VHS tapes. I tried to get a hold of them. I think I tried to rent them, but since there was nudity and profanity in them, it was probably rated R or something that I couldn't get as a kid. So, yeah, now that the world's your oyster and you can get whatever you want whenever you want, I never thought to go back to it until I talked to Brad Rader, and I was like, I got to get back to that. So, and I did get into it, but not too deeply. So I'm excited to get into the rest of it and really get a chance to watch that show and enjoy it on the level it should be enjoyed, And yeah, it was a big part of Chuck's career. So I was very excited to chat with him about that. And glad we got to cover a lot of ground. Like I said, we could have covered way more. I mean, there's a lot of things I wanted to talk to him about more, but I didn't want to keep him any longer than I had. And also, I had to get off to rehearsal. But anyway, maybe someday I'll get to circle back and talk to Chuck again, because what a conversation and what a cool guy. But if you like good conversations, that's what you're here for, right? This is the Graphic Histories Podcast, and this is what we do. And next week, we have another episode coming up with Diedrich O. Smith, a comic illustrator, did some animation as well, and then circled back to comics. We have a great chat as well about his career, about where he's been, where he's going, and some interesting stuff. He had a run-in with a former WWE wrestler, and yeah, it's a fun story too. So I'll tease you with that. That's what I'll leave you with. You must matriculate. You must think about what that is. And hopefully the curiosity will be overbearing so that you have a great relief when you get to listen to that episode. But that's in 1 week's time. In the meantime, stay safe, have fun, read comics, and I will catch you in 1 week's time. The Graphic Histories Podcast is a proud partner of the United Federation of Podcasts.